Welcome to Fight the Devil podcast, episode number 9. My name is Luke Martino, and joining me is a very good mate of mine. A colleague who I've only known for the last 12 months, but through the instant connection of Italian heritage, it feels like a hell of a lot longer. He is, much like myself, a product of the old school, larger-than-life personalities that influence Australian football for generations. Together, we are the modern day of all the good qualities that come from yesteryear, of all the eras come and gone. At just 26 years old, he is an old soul, a true gentleman, and his name is Anthony, aka Jezza. Welcome, Jezza.
Thanks, Luke. Good to be here. Lovely intro.
How's that for your intro?
That's one for the ages, that one. I love that one. Thanks, Luke.
That's any time, the Jezza and Capper show.
Going to be a good one. We're going to talk a lot. It'll be good. I'm excited to get stuck into it.
Oh, awesome. No, it was really good having you on. And I meant everything through that intro because, just touching on the Italian heritage, I just finished up the Italian sauce process of the 6 boxes of tomatoes and to produce a record-breaking 7 cases of bottled tomato sauce with my wife and her parents. For those that don't know that's listening, it's a beautiful tradition in the Italian culture that produces the very best pasta sauce in the world. Jezza, tell us if your family carry through those traditions now, and what did you do growing up that was Italian-like and generational?
Yeah, no, definitely. So especially growing up, being much younger in my younger years, tomato sauce, making the sauce was definitely our forte. Loved it, going to nonna and nonno's house, and early in the morning and preparing everything. It was great bond with with the family, and just making the sauce. And I think the best thing about it is making the sauce fresh, but nothing better having a fresh pasta with fresh sauce on the day. So love the tradition. Want to still keep going on the tradition. It's great to still have it. I definitely enjoy it, Luke.
Oh, don't we both? Yes, no, that will continue on for many generations to come along. And we've discussed before that it's a bit of a dying practice, a dying breed. So it's up to us to kind of continue that going forward. And I know we'll do a great job at keeping that alive.
Definitely. It is really important. One day it'll be really important to pass on to the next generation, which is really important. It's like I said before, it's great to bond with the family, and even if you may have not have seen each other for for a little while, it's brings the family together. So it's great.
So did you have your Zias and Zios come over? It was like a big family affair,
Yeah.
everyone in doing their part for the Italian sauce? How did it work?
Yeah, so big family. So usually we do it on my dad's side of the family. So we'll all come together, cousins, Zios, all come together, and early in the morning. Usually back then it is at nonno's house, and then sometimes we we'll mix it up and do it at Zia and Zio's house, which is pretty cool. Even younger, learning all the machines, how it all works, having a great laugh, and it's better if it's a nice day. If it's a nice day, it's good. It makes it even better. So I think the only thing that we don't like is the cleanup. So it takes forever to clean everything up, but it's great. I love it.
Beautiful. That's great to hear. Yeah, cleanup is a bit annoying, but it just comes with the process. So
that's it.
No, all good, all well. The story I had of breaking the record of 7 cases of bottled sauce, that was only a couple of weeks ago. So I think it's usually around this time, like February, March.
Yeah.
I know not every family follows that, but I think that's the time where the tomatoes are most accessible.
Yeah.
But could be wrong. But that was done, and that should be good for the next couple of years.
Yeah. I think the beauty about it is, we have bottles for years, which is good. So nothing better than fresh sauce, and having heaps for a long time. So I completely love it. Where do you usually do the sauce, Luke? Do you go there in a massive group as well?
So my family, from memory, I'm pretty sure they definitely did have extended family help us throughout that process, but I haven't done it in my immediate family since like
Yep.
2010.
Okay.
So memories are a bit vague. With my in-laws, I've done that like 3 times in the last 5 years.
Okay.
So, and it's just us. It's just us
Yep.
because my wife doesn't have any family in Australia. They're all in Italy. So it's
Yep.
literally just my mother-in-law, father-in-law, myself, and my wife. And on the off chance, it's my sister-in-law, if she's not working, she'll join. But most of the time, it's just been the four of us.
Yep.
And I know we just power through it, regardless of the numbers. It's a process we all know very well and what to do. And
Yep.
yeah, I like it. Probably my favorite time of the year when bonding with the family.
Definitely. And everyone knows their stations and what to do. Everyone has their, I guess, their forte. Mine's pushing the tomatoes through the machine. That's my forte and my station. So depending on the numbers, everyone just gets the job done on the day, which is good.
Now it's great. Great teamwork. Really enjoy it.
Yep.
And before we get into any deeper stories and personal developments, I just want to ask you a question. I ask all my guests on the pod, and it's a simple one that usually is reserved for job interviews, but this isn't a HR hiring process. So please, Jezza, in explicit terms, describe yourself.
Okay, definitely. Well, I'm a very easygoing person. Love to have a laugh, as you're aware, Luke. Love being around my mates and my family. Love my footy, that's for sure. So footy season's coming up, so that's definitely a big part of my life. But yeah, love watching my soccer as well. That's something's always big for me, especially my sport in general. So love meeting new people as well. Looking to definitely explore the world, a little bit more. Definitely looking to go to Europe, which will be exciting. Hopefully in the next couple of years, just to explore the world and see what's out there, and definitely visit my country, Italy, one day. So which will be good. But I'm a very easygoing person and not take life too seriously. I think that's the key, is to enjoy life, enjoy everyone's company, and have a good time.
Absolutely fantastic. I can definitely attest to being easygoing and relaxed around you, Anthony. And there's many people that have told me about you that whenever they're around you, they just feel at ease. It's we feel that peace that you radiate in the world, and it's great to be around you because you are easygoing,
Thanks,
without a
mate.
doubt.
I appreciate it. I thank you, and likewise, you're a gem to be around, Luke. You always put a smile on everyone's face. So you're a great bloke.
Thank you. I just want to make people laugh and make it worthwhile to get out of the bed in the morning and be a comedian for a day.
That's it. That's what life's about. Less technology, more interacting. Can't go wrong, can it?
Yeah, definitely not. And glad you brought that up because I'm thinking we start this podcast. Let's go right back to the beginning for
Yep.
us in terms of the grandparents' era. So we're talking 1950s migration era,
Yep.
post World War II, that
Yep.
saw many young Greeks, Italians, and Europeans travel via big cruise ships, taken roughly 3 or 4 weeks before arriving at Port Melbourne.
Yep.
My nonna always tells the story of traveling on the boat from Napoli to Australia in 1956, taking 26 days to reach Australia, and meeting her husband, who was dressed very sharp in a suit, where they both stayed at my great uncle and aunt's place for 4 years in Oakley. What's your grandparents' origin story, Jezza?
They've always told us migrating to Australia, it was, for a better opportunity to work, which is, essential. Work in Australia was much better to start a new life, and even not knowing how to speak English was tough for them. So they had to learn to interact with people here, and not knowing the language wasn't easy, but they got by. And I even remember when me and my brother were young, and they used to when they used to come over, they used to take us to the shops, and you know, it's sometimes we used to, being 12 years old, we used to have to translate to the people at the shops, to the workers at the shops, what they're saying, and I think it was just those memories where helping your grandparents out, which is really important. Just little things like that. But yeah, it was essential back then for them to come to Australia and not only work, but to learn our language. And my grandfather owning a fruit shop was special to him, and he had it for years, and telling us stories, and the ups and downs, and coming here was definitely essential to start a new life for sure.
No doubt, Jezza. Talk about that fruit shop that your grandfather owned. Being a small business, that definitely has its fair share of trouble, depending
Yep.
on the time and the season that the fruits are growing.
Yep.
No doubt you would have been exposed to all that or hear the stories.
Yeah, no, definitely. There'll be, stronger seasons than others, and at the end of the day, you just want to make ends meet. Making sure that the money's coming in, and providing for the family, and there's always going to be ups and downs, but having the people around you, and to keep you going. And there were some stories, probably won't go into too much detail, but having some insight from my father's past, and having trouble with people at school that he had trouble with. The fruit shop was across the road from school, so my
Oh,
dad had trouble at school, and then sometimes it can lead to having trouble at the fruit shop because it's so close. So there's
oh man.
yeah, there was always times where back then it was self defense. Back in that day, when you had trouble at school, or we had trouble anywhere back then, it was self defense, and and sticking up for yourself. So that was a big thing for my dad. Especially in primary school, he had to stick up for himself, and protect himself, and and his family's business as well.
Yes, no doubt there would have been trouble, and we'll touch on that when we discuss our parents' era, self defense, and the bullying that would have occurred around that time.
Yeah, yeah,
We'll unpack that for sure. But just sticking to the grandparents' era, growing up, I know for sure you've heard more of the same stories that I've heard about our nonnies era
yeah,
when they were growing up, like washing the clothes in the river, making the soap from scratch,
yeah.
cutting the wool off the sheep so they can make it into cotton for jumper and woolly socks, and as well as taking a whole day to wash their bed sheets and cloths at the river. What stories would you typically hear?
Yeah. Well, not too much of that, to be honest. Um, um,
Okay.
I I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. But definitely growing up when I was younger was, I think the best part was the Italian cards. Definitely in my grandparents' era. You can imagine me being in primary school, getting picked up from school from nonno, and learning how to play cards. But I think the best part about it was when money was at stake, and you can imagine I was,
All right.
8 years old. I think that was just, the whole part of the fun back then, and we had many memories, and many stories told, and for example, they used to, own a dog back in the day when they were a bit younger, and the classic saying of whatever we eat, the dog eats. So they used to have high cholesterol, and have all the have all the problems that we have. I think that's such an Italian thing is we feed them all the good food on what we eat. So there was many stories like that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, then maybe our stories would differ then, because did your grandparents grow up on a farm?
Yeah, so my mum's parents did. My mum and
Oh,
dad
yeah.
did. So they grew up on the farm. Yet again, trying to make ends meet. To provide for the family at the farm. They had to learn to at times, fend for themselves, and to become an adult so early. I guess, which is important for them. Growing all the fruits, and all the produce. It was important to them. They worked long hours as well. Same as my dad's mum and dad, mother, nonno. They in the fruit shop. Working long hours to provide for the family, and they pass that inspiration to our family to to work hard and and provide for our families as well.
You definitely passed on the work ethic side of things, and you
Definitely.
mentioned having to grow the vegetables in the farm. So my nonna's and having to be an adult so quick, it definitely applies to my nonna's case because she had to drop out of school in grade 3, even though she was the best in the class for out of 100 students in the village.
Yeah.
She had to drop out because her parents needed help at home. My nonna's mum, she was having kids every 2 years, and she was
Right.
the eldest of 6. My great grandparents, they were too busy at the farm, growing the wheat, potatoes, corn, carrots, and silver beet, as well as feeding the donkeys, buffaloes, and bulls on 4 acres of land.
Wow. Okay. So it's it's would have definitely kept them busy. That's for sure. But like you said, they bring that, they pass on that work ethic to to us, and we got to do the same. We got to for the new generation, for us, we got to pass it on to them to show good work ethic. Whether that's life in general. I guess.
Yeah, definitely. I have a desire to have that much, well, not that much space in my house surrounding, but probably a good section of garden space so that I can continue to grow those vegetables of the most organic. Because one of my things my nonna always has talked about, and to this day, she always talks about how there were no artificial foods and pesticides, and that's because it wasn't as convenient to go down to the Coles or Safeway and
Yep.
get whatever was at the store. Like you had to grow it. So, and I prefer being Italian. I know we much prefer the food that comes from the ground.
Yep.
So I definitely
Yep.
want to keep that going too.
Yeah. 100%. The veggie garden. I don't know an Italian that doesn't have a veggie garden. So, everyone's got one, and there's nothing better than fresh, veggies from from the garden. Always, when it comes to tomatoes and even chilies, lettuce, everything. Broccoli, which is really important. So definitely, having fresh veggies is definitely a big part of the the Italian household. If we can avoid the shops, we will.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was just remembering now. We've grew up the way we did with everything so pure and organic. And then there was this school camp. I just remember this on the spot now. Like
Yeah,
school camp, like grade 5, 6, and whatever age it was. It'd be like kids be happy to have like canned spaghetti on toast. I thought,
yeah.
what the fuck is this? Like, this is disgusting. Is this how it blew my mind.
I'm glad. I'm glad you brought that up, Luke. 'Cause, that's another great topic to talk about. Growing up in school, whether it was primary school or high school, felt like I was carrying a suitcase to work, and that suitcase was food. And you know, we had a lot of Aussie mates, and of course Italian mates as well. And I had all the meats in my sandwich, all the cheeses and everything. And and I'm not talking about one sandwich. I'm talking about two or three, and that might have been two of them for morning tea. So growing up in school and just comparing the lunches, I'm like, wow, we've got it fucking good. So, making sure that we'll always full. That wasn't a problem, was it, Luke? We're never hungry, and always having a mini dinner at when we get home from school before dinner. So, which was great, and that was fun memories for me.
Mate, that still happens now. Like
Yeah,
now with my wife, who's also Italian, she's thinking as we're about to move in with, and I'm stacking up all this food. The expenses that we contribute every month is just going towards food alone,
yeah, yep. It's not
let
easy.
alone the utility bills. That there's pros and cons with being a wog, and the expenses reserve a good amount for food.
Yeah, 100%. It's not easy with, especially with the cost of living and food prices going up, and even for drinks as well. It's sometimes, we think to ourselves, "Hey, when is it going to get better?" It's everyone's just trying to provide for their family and just make ends meet. because it's at the moment, it doesn't look like it's getting any better, and uh, it is tough. But yeah, like I said before, even coming home from from work, having a bowl of pasta before my actual dinner, something that's always been part of my growing up. It's probably not a good thing, but it's just what we do as Italians. Is we like to overeat sometimes, but it's all in good nature, I guess.
Oh, yes. And tell us the stories about going to Nonna's house just for a snack.
Oh yes, I'm glad you brought that up, Luke. So you can imagine me being 9, 10 years old and finishing school, and I'm a young boy, and you'll see nonno pick me up from primary school and drive me home, and I've already had 3 sandwiches and all the cheeses and everything in there, and um, and believe it or not, even having salad as well, and that was at school, and but going home, going to nonna and nonno's house, you know, you would rock up, you'll walk in, and you'll be greeted with beepi. So if anyone doesn't know what beepi is, it's like roasted capsicum with olive oil and garlic and a bit of salt and pepper. Me being 10, you can imagine me having bibi, which is a big Italian tradition, and even having pasta as soon as we get back. It's and that was supposed to be a snack, but for that was a meal, and even sometimes having a salad with it as well. But I think the classic salad was drenched in vinegar.
Oh, man.
Yeah, and you
So
can
much
imagine
vinegar in the salad.
so much vinegar, and you imagine being at that age, you're pretty much drunk, uh, having all that having all that vinegar in, but it's, they were the best times, spending quality time with with your grandparents, and the overeating, at that age was incredible, but was quite funny.
Absolutely. It's what my sisters and I looked forward to all the time, especially on Thursdays when both my parents were working,
Yep.
and we got back from school, and we would have got like carpooled back to my nonna's house separately. But we met at my nonna's, and yeah, Thursday nights were our favorite nights of the week because we just feasted so
Yep.
much, and we got to be ourselves as well, because like our family dynamic in the immediate family was a bit tricky at times with how my mum and dad were, but with my nonna we were ourselves, like 100% authentic, and it was so much fun. And those were
Yep.
definitely the best childhood days for me. And that was a big feast after school. And then, of course, my nonna, when it came to dinner time, man, she cooked up the biggest pasta dish. And it wasn't like anyone's birthday. It was just Thursday. It
Yeah.
was cheesy pasta penne with sauce in the oven. Oh, the
Yeah.
greatest of all time.
Definitely. It's what a tradition, to to have all that food, and it was, quite funny. Just a lazy Thursday, or it could be even a Tuesday and Monday. We had so much food that you couldn't even invite all the neighbors over. So that was the best part about it, having all that food, but definitely the vinegar in the salad was quite funny growing up. Was something I'll definitely will never forget. But of course, we can't forget the cotolletti, Luke. For
Oh,
anyone doesn't know that, chicken breast coated in breadcrumbs and egg yolk, and you will fry it on the pan, and that's the called the Italian cotolletti. But in the Australian way, it's chicken schnitzel, and that was a big part of us growing up, and obviously still now. I had it the other day, which was pretty cool.
oh, so nice. And like the nonni, the way they cook it is like deep fried in oil.
Ah,
Oh, I don't know how they do it. I don't think I'll ever know, be able to gain the skill set to cook it as well as they do.
it's an art, is it? It's something that we admire just to watch them how they do it, and especially when my nonna was both nonnas were cooking it. It's I used to just watch and just admire how they did it. Just something as simple as that was important for them. Cooking for them was important. Always bring the family closer. Whether that was Easter, Christmas, which I'm sure we'll get into as well later on, and but for them that was really important to bring the family close.
Yeah, it definitely is all about the unity and family community. But we've talked about our grandparents' generation. Let's fast track now to our parents' generation.
Yep.
Being they are first generation wogs, as our mum and dads navigate the world through the late 70s and 1980s, mate, they would have copped it hard at school with the word wog being used as a strong derogatory term, as
Yep.
opposed to now where it's a term of endearment.
Yep.
What stories have you typically heard from the Generation X, which, for those that don't know, is people born in 1965 to 1980?
Yeah. 100%. So definitely, back in my my parents' days, especially school, being WOG definitely had its challenges. Being bullied and being targeted. It wasn't easy, whether that was life in general or school. So they had to always defend themselves, and there was many fights. And for example, my dad ripped t-shirts and shirts, and always coming home with always ripped jumpers as well. It was always a scare for his parents, my nonna and nonno, and but back then it was all about defending yourself and keeping your friends close, especially through those tough times at school. And but being Italian, WOG back then, it like I said, it wasn't easy.
Definitely not. I unfortunately feel a bit robbed of the stories that could have been shared
Yeah.
on my end because my uncle, my mum's brother, he actually passed away in a car accident at 19 years old.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, so I've only heard these stories from my nonna and from my mum, who was like maybe 10 or 11 years old.
Yeah.
Apparently, he liked the Angels as well. And I just
Okay.
went to see the Angels a couple of months ago for my birthday. So we would have
Yeah.
got along great, I reckon, if he was still around.
Yeah. Well, sorry to hear
Um,
that, Luke. It would have been tough, for sure.
I've heard all the stories that my uncle went through when it came to the ripped shirts and like being called a wog, and like it was just really like real hateful words that were being used to be picked on,
Yeah.
just because that's how schoolyard tends to be, just pick on the outsider. So much so that my nonna had to go into the school and like talk to the teacher and say and like let him know, "Hey, he was born here. He was born
Yep.
in Australia. Why are you picking on him?" And so my nonna had to stand up for him. And my nonna's like tough cookie, so she wasn't going to take shit from anyone. And I like to think that that's passed down on to my uncle, because later he toughened up. He got like thick skin from that, and he developed his own group of wogs. I think in Oakley, I think they were called the Clayton North Boys.
Okay.
And
Yep.
yeah, so Clayton North was where I grew up in, but by the time I was born and grew up, the school that my uncle went to, that had all been knocked down and houses were built in 1996. And that
Yep.
was the year I was born in East Oakley.
Yep.
So suburbs. So like that was, yeah, I would have loved to have like just been a fly on the wall. And I almost feel like sometimes I've kind of lived that life a little bit just through all the connection that I get from family, and people tell me that that I'm reminded by. Been reminded of my uncle.
Yeah.
Would have got along really well. But yeah, he went through all that shit, and yeah, it's a shame it couldn't come through to where we're at in 2025, because yeah, I'm sure it would have been a hell of a time.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. Definitely. And it's really important to listen to these stories as well, because it's our new generation. 2025. It doesn't. Of course, there is fights, but in our parents' days, it was just an everyday thing, I guess, that they had to put up with, and and fight for, and it's not easy, for them. And whether that was, especially I mentioned earlier, my parents going to school, having a lot of friends, which wasn't a problem, but facing bullies was a challenge. Whether that was on the bus, getting tripped over. My parents had to definitely defend themselves, and it was just a common thing that they had to do. Those fights when it got spilt over to the family business in the fruit shop, that wasn't ideal. But yet again, they had to defend themselves, and which they did. And I think I guess the positive that came out of it was for a lot of the Italians growing up back then, where when they used to get into fights, is some of them they became friends afterwards. They had a great respect for each other, or they did after they had the fight and actually became friends. So that does happen as well. When they think you're the weakest link, but then they realize that you're not, they really calm down and they actually become friends with you. So I have heard about that as well.
Yeah, it's interesting those type of yarns where like old school stories of like having a big fights in front of the pub, like everyone
Yeah,
surrounding you and really having a big tussle. At the end of it, they're having a drink together, having a laugh. It's like how would that have worked?
yeah.
It's
It's
interesting that sort of those archive stories.
mind blowing. They think you're the weakest link back then, and then all of a sudden you're best mates and you're going out on nights out and on a Saturday night, and who knows? I probably become their best man. So uh, it's it's crazy, back then. But growing up, they had to learn to defend themselves, and that's what it was about.
Definitely develop the thick skin. And
Like,
if we can discuss a little more into that freedom, while there was bullying, what tends to happen is that while there's that violence going on, there's also a side that is looked upon through rose colored glasses, and that is the freedom that they had for various reasons. So I'm going to point out a couple now. So the first one here, there was no technology. So back then, as soon as you'd get home from school, you'd dump your school bag inside and play with all the other schoolmates in the neighborhoods, either kicking the footy, building billy carts, getting involved with some battles, like throwing rotten fruit, glass clippings, or water balloons at each other, like just real community spirit, mucking about. And the second thing was that parents did trust their kids a bit more because there were hardly any reported, and I say this with sensitivity, hardly any reported sex offenders, child kidnappers, or pedophiles roaming the streets.
yeah.
What are your thoughts on all that?
Yeah, no, definitely. We've heard a lot of stories back then where not having that technology gave them the opportunity to meet new people and learn new things. Like you said, my dad, built billy carts, and my mum, meeting new people, or it was them back then. They had to. The interacting was always a common thing, and they had to, even for example, if they want to go on a date and they just say if they like someone, it's not about ringing someone on their iPhone. There was no iPhones back then. They had to you know meet up, or ring the home phone, and if they if their mum and dad picked up, well, good luck. You have to explain to them that you want to take their son or their daughter out. But that was the beauty part about it, is where they had to face those interactions in person, not over the phone, which I think was big back then. And I would have loved to be part of that era of not having that technology. It brought people closer, whether that's just going to the park and just building things and just going on adventures. It just would have been different back then. Of course, I love life now, but hearing those stories from your parents, you want to put yourself back in those days and not having technology all around you, left, right, and center.
Yeah, more of the same. It's taken me a long time to use technology as a tool,
Yeah,
but too often it's used commonly as a substitute for living,
yeah,
and we see it every day. But community spirit is big, and all we can do as generational leaders is try to continue to bring that community spirit, because I think deep at the core, everyone out there wants to feel like a sense of belonging with one another. And a lot of the times these days, depending where you live, we don't even know our neighbours as well as our parents' generation, where you fully knew everyone around you. And I had Jeff on the podcast not long ago, and he said that was more of the case. Like, yeah, growing up, God, for him it was actually very interesting because, like, going way back, as kids there was like no OH&S when it came to construction sites, so they'd have kids like just wandering through the construction site like unarmed and just privy to falling 3 stories high, but we didn't
Yeah.
hear any stories about that.
Yeah, and I think I think the funniest part, it just a memory just came up was there was no water restrictions back then, Luke. So
Mm.
they would all the Italians would have all the the sprinklers on, and and all the especially if you had wog neighbors, that always bring them closer, and everyone having the sprinklers on, and the grass would always be green, which is funny. So there's those memories that we hear, which is which is pretty funny. But it's really important not to lose that that face to face interaction, because technology is just going to get bigger and bigger. So that's my goal is for one day when I have kids, you want to teach them to not be so stuck into technology, and meet people, and keep that tradition going, and just having that verbal interaction is important, because like I said, technology will grow, but as long as you teach them the right way, that's all you can do.
Definitely is. No, we do a fantastic job of it, Jezza. Between us, we're usually hanging back many hours after hours, just
Yep.
because we're catching up on things and just enjoying each other's company. Because there's no substitute for that, really. If you're at home, it's like, all right, you're home now. You do what you need to do, but when you're out, like, I just want to engage and mingle with all the
Yeah.
best people around me. Sometimes I never want to go home because I'm
Yeah.
enjoying it too much, and yeah, it's good
Sometimes we
stuff.
lose track of time, and it's been a couple of hours. But I guess that's the beauty part about it. You're enjoying each other's company, and and you learn from each other. You learn life experiences, and everything. So I think that's great that we spoke about this, because technology, like I said, will keep getting bigger. But you never want to lose that interaction with people.
Definitely not. No, we'll continue that going forward.